The year is 1480 in Romania, and Prince Vlad is happily married to Elisabetta. He gifts her a small golden music box to show his love. They share a passionate moment in bed, while white feathers fly everywhere. Suddenly, heavily armored knights burst through their bedroom doors. They grab Vlad by his bare arms and drag him away. The country is at war, so he must leave immediately. Vlad strictly orders his men to take Elisabetta to a safe castle. Before leaving, Vlad kneels inside a quiet church in his armor. A priest touches his head and blesses him for the war. Vlad agrees to fight, but he desperately asks for his wife's protection. Later, Elisabetta rides a white horse through a snowy forest. Several armed guards escort her toward the new castle. An enemy soldier hides on a high tree branch with a crossbow. He shoots fast arrows and instantly takes down 2 guards. The other guards draw their swords and tell Elisabetta to flee. Outside the woods, Vlad's army faces the enemy across an open field. Vlad smashes wooden barrels to spill oil across the muddy grass. A massive wall of fire ignites to trap the enemy forces. A brutal and bloody battle begins right after. Soldiers clash and die all over the battlefield. Vlad fights fiercely in his striking dragon armor. His skilled men work together and clearly hold the advantage. The enemy king slowly steps outside his large red tent. He stares at Vlad standing on a high dark ridge. Vlad's knights hold tall spears topped with severed enemy heads. A soldier suddenly interrupts to warn Vlad about an ambush. Vlad quickly turns his horse to go find his wife. Meanwhile, Elisabetta races her white horse through a snowy forest. Several armed enemy soldiers chase closely behind her on horseback. This dangerous area hides deadly bear traps under the snow. 2 of the chasing riders hit traps and crash hard. Soon after, Elisabetta's white horse triggers another hidden metal trap. The animal falls and throws her into the freezing snow. The remaining enemies slowly approach her on the frozen fields. Elisabetta desperately tries to crawl away from the armed men. Her knee presses directly down onto a concealed metal trap. The jagged metal jaws fiercely snap shut on her leg. She screams loudly in pain with blood covering her face. Soon after, Vlad charges into the snowy clearing on horseback. His armored horse hits a trap and violently falls over. Vlad scrambles up and pulls off his heavy dragon helmet. He angrily fights 2 soldiers and cuts them down quickly. Another enemy soldier stands directly over the badly injured princess. Vlad forcefully throws his heavy sword at the tall man. The sharp blade stabs entirely through the enemy soldier's body. Sadly, the sharp metal tip also pierces deeply into Elisabetta's chest. Vlad stares in complete shock as his wife falls backward. He drops to his knees beside her heavily bleeding body. He cries loudly in the snow while cradling his dying wife. A furious Vlad storms into a church wearing heavy armor. He yells at a bishop to revive his dead wife. The old bishop explains that God does not perform reincarnation. Vlad violently grabs the man's throat in a rage. He quickly seizes a large metal cross from the altar. He brutally stabs the old bishop with the heavy crucifix. A strong wind suddenly blows wildly through the stone church. A wooden statue of Jesus starts crying tears of blood. Vlad spreads his arms wide and looks up with pride. Terrified soldiers grab his arms and drag the prince away. 400 years later, a priest visits a psychiatric clinic. He meets with Dr. Dumont inside a quiet hospital chapel. The older doctor takes a quick sip from a flask. He mentions a delicate case worrying the Queen of England. The 2 men then walk down a chaotic hospital hallway. Wild patients are actively shouting and causing trouble all around. Hospital guards harshly drag the screaming people across the floor. Dumont unlocks a metal door and leads the priest down a tunnel. They enter a stone room where Maria lies chained. This Italian woman is engaged to the Queen's great-nephew. She refused a church wedding, forcing the ceremony onto the family estate. The grooms secretly brought a bishop, which sent Maria into a panic. Dumont notes from her file that she was born in 1759. This impossible date means she would be exactly 130 years old. Her extreme age and hatred for God make Dumont wonder if she is a devil. Maria suddenly wakes up and hisses aggressively at the men. The priest inspects her face with a magnifying glass. He spots her fangs and immediately concludes she is a vampire. He also notes she is the first live specimen ever captured. He explains that vampires can tolerate daylight but not direct sun rays. Dumont opens a small wall hatch to prove this point. A bright beam of sunlight strikes Maria's chained hand. Her pale skin immediately smokes and burns in the light. The priest then holds a metal crucifix near her face. The holy object suddenly bursts into bright yellow flames. Next, the priest cuts the assistant's finger with a knife. He drops fresh blood into Maria's mouth to earn her cooperation. The priest examines Maria's neck and finds small bite marks. He explains the church has hunted the original vampire for centuries. Maria smiles at the men and reveals her sharp fangs. She desperately tells tells them the first vampire is her master. She cries bloody tears while begging for more blood. Maria claims he is a prince looking for his princess. Meanwhile, a carriage travels through a dark, snowy forest. The driver suddenly stops his horses on the icy road. He refuses to drive any further because of the wolves. He tosses Jonathan's luggage onto the cold snow. The driver hands Jonathan a torch and a small crucifix. The carriage quickly turns around and leaves the area. Glowing red eyes appear inside the dark woods. A black wolf silently watches Jonathan walk down the path. He holds the flaming torch high to stay safe. Eventually, he reaches the entrance of a massive castle. He walks inside, and the heavy iron gate slams shut. Jonathan steps towards a pair of large wooden doors. The thick doors mysteriously swing open on their own. He walks slowly into the completely dark room. The heavy doors suddenly close right behind his back. Jonathan explores the empty space with his torch. A dark figure stands outside a large circular window. A bright flash of lightning fills the night sky. The mysterious person instantly disappears from the balcony. Jonathan is startled by a pale old man behind him. He takes Jonathan's torch and calmly tosses it away. Large crystal chandeliers suddenly light up the dark room. The strange man introduces himself as Count Dracula. They sit at a long table in a grand dining hall. Jonathan happily eats his meal, but Dracula eats nothing. The Count simply waves his hand through the air. A plate quickly slides down the table toward Jonathan. Jonathan smiles and assumes it is a clever trick. Then, Jonathan leans down to search his brown leather bag. While he is distracted, a rat scurries across the table. Dracula swiftly stabs the rat with a silver fork. He crushes the animal in his bare hand. Blood drips from the rat directly into his goblet. Dracula calmly drinks the blood before Jonathan looks back up. Jonathan explains his clients want to buy Dracula's old abbey. While pulling out documents, a crucifix falls to the floor. Dracula asks if Jonathan is a believer. Jonathan says no and explains a coachman gave it to him. Dracula sharply flicks his fingers toward the fallen cross. The object flies straight into the burning fireplace. Dracula then announces that it is time for bed. The vampire goes downstairs and plays a shiny, golden gramophone. He looks up and orders a stone gargoyle to watch. Upstairs, Jonathan reads an old book by the warm firelight. He finds a picture of Vlad inside the history book. He notices a later page has been completely torn out. Meanwhile, the priest visits Henry to discuss Maria's evil condition. The priest then searches Maria's dark bedroom using a lamp. He looks inside a desk drawer under some brown gloves. He discovers the missing torn page showing Princess Elisabetta's portrait. Jonathan explores the dark castle corridors with a glass lantern. He walks down steep stone stairs into a quiet crypt. Jonathan pushes a heavy coffin lid open and looks inside. He discovers a very old, pale creature sleeping peacefully. A living stone gargoyle instantly hits Jonathan hard from behind. Jonathan later wakes up on the floor with a bleeding face. The living gargoyles quickly lock heavy chains around his wrists. They pull him up until he hangs completely upside down. One gargoyle holds a white bowl under Jonathan's injured head. A few drops of blood fall directly into the bowl. Jonathan asks how God could create such an evil monster. Dracula responds to this by letting out a high-pitched laugh. He finds the comment funny and asks for a final wish. Jonathan desperately begs to hear the old vampire's life story. Dracula likes this bold idea and orders his monsters down. The gargoyles drop Jonathan roughly onto the cold stone floor. Dracula then begins to share the details of his past. He remembers a very sad funeral from many centuries ago. A younger Dracula stands quietly while wearing full silver armor. He drops a single red rose onto a carved stone grave. He is deeply mourning the loss of his wife, Elisabetta. Dracula explains he has waited for her 400 years. He truly believes that pure souls can easily be reincarnated. Dracula tells Jonathan that his long search was very difficult. Plague doctors and masks carted away many dead bodies. Half of the female population died from the sickness. The surviving women gathered safely inside holy places. Dracula was not welcome there and could not enter. He became incredibly lonely and envied dying humans. One rainy day, Dracula collapsed onto Elisabetta's stone grave. A freezing snowstorm completely buried his sleeping body. When he woke up, he felt an overwhelming despair. Dracula marched directly to a high castle window. He fell backwards into the abyss and smashed the icy ground. However, the cursed vampire survived the massive drop. He repeatedly threw himself out the tall window. No matter how many times he plummeted, he always lived. Dracula needed a clever plan to attract his wife. For over a century, he gathered beautiful and magical flowers. He visited vast lavender fields and busy markets. Eventually, he created a highly unique perfume. He tested this fragrance on an old Italian bridge. Mesmerized women quickly pressed their hands against the glass doors. Later, Dracula stood inside a large golden palace room. He applied the sweet fragrance to his skin. Instantly, all the wealthy nobles started dancing together. They moved in perfect, synchronized steps under his control. Dracula spots a blonde woman. He approaches her hoping he has finally found his lost Elisabetta. The woman turns around and introduces herself as Isabel instead. A tear rolls down his face as the mistake makes him cry. He watches the drunken and guests eating messily around the room. Dracula realizes he is surrounded by debauchery instead of actual love. He decides to stop searching and make others do the work. He quickly grabs the laughing women around him during the party. He violently bites their necks to turn them into new vampires. Later, Dracula returns to Elisabetta's overgrown stone grave. He drops to his knees and digs with his bare hands. He punches right through the heavy stone cover to break it. Inside the hole, he discovers that only her ashes are left. He scoops up the gray dust and breaks down in agony. After this breakdown, he decides to never leave his castle again. Grotesque gargoyles dump chests of gold coins onto his table. They act as servants while his vampires continue the search. Back in the dungeon, Jonathan speaks to the old vampire. He explains that he clearly understands this intense kind of love. Jonathan reveals he is engaged and mentions his silver locket. Dracula takes the necklace and carefully snaps the locket open. He examines the photograph of Jonathan's beautiful fiancée, Mina. Dracula gasps loudly and forcefully clutches his throat in shock. He is overcome with emotion, realizing she is his wife's reincarnation. Dracula promises to spare Jonathan for finding his lost love. He bursts through heavy wooden doors to command his gargoyles. He demands lots of blood to look beautiful for Elizabeth. In Paris, Dumont examines a torn portrait in his office. A priest explains the ancient vampire seeks this exact woman. They must locate her to finally trap the dangerous monster. The priest then reads a passage from a small book. It states God can refuse the mercy of death for blasphemy. However, true repentance can lift the curse and bring forgiveness. If they kill Dracula, his dark magic will also die. Then all his bitten victims will become human once again. Simon spots the torn portrait in the busy doctor's office. He points out a matching woman waiting in the hallway. Dumont and the priest hurry out to meet the visitor. A young lady turns away from a large glass window. She introduces herself as Mina to the two older men. Mina explains she became close friends with Maria recently. Maria acted very kind until a crowded wedding reception happened. Seeing a passing bishop triggered a very violent emotional outburst. Mina then confesses her own deep and personal inner doubts. She feels highly unsure about her fast-approaching marriage plans. She honestly feels like she belongs in a different time. Meanwhile, a snowy abbey sits in a dark, quiet valley. Two kind nuns bring a shivering homeless man inside. He walks into the dimly lit stone chapel completely alone. Suddenly, he throws off his heavy brown and ragged cloak. Dracula stands tall and reveals his true, monstrous, pale face. He quickly rubs perfume on a wooden statue of Jesus. The strong, magical scent wakes up dozens of sleeping nuns. They rush frantically into the stone chapel wearing white robes. The overwhelmed women immediately fall down onto their bare knees. They crawl toward Dracula with a wild and crazy desire. The desperate nuns quickly form a massive pile around him. Without any hesitation, Dracula bites deeply into a woman's neck. Inside his dark cell, Jonathan whips a blanket at some tools. He pulls them closer and quickly breaks his iron chain. Dracula enters a dark cell where Maria sits in heavy chains. She smiles wildly and happily announces she found his Elizabeth. Dracula rewards her by offering the helpless Simon to feed on. Maria eagerly bites Simon's arm as Dracula closes his eyes. The priest sits in a library studying a printed portrait. He is quickly called back to the busy psychiatric clinic. Dumont leads him into a dark cell to check on Simon. Simon is heavily strapped down to a simple metal bed. The priest pulls back Simon's lips to reveal sharp fangs. Dumont mentions a strong perfume lingering inside the small room. He describes the elegant stranger who helped Maria to escape. Hearing this, the terrified priest realizes Mina is in danger. Meanwhile, Mina opens her front door after hearing a knock. She gasps in shock at a healthy and smiling Maria. Maria wears a feathered hat and waves some event tickets. She explains that a close friend wants to meet Mina. Mina quickly runs upstairs to change into a beautiful dress. The women hurry into a grand hotel lobby with chandeliers. Dracula waits patiently among the wealthy crowd in a suit. A single tear falls as he stares closely at Mina. He softly showers Mina with romantic compliments about her beauty. Dracula gently grabs her hand and kisses her bare skin. Mina suddenly experiences a brief vision of a royal woman. Feeling very uncomfortable, she quickly pulls her hand away from him. Maria happily grabs her arm to leave the crowded hotel. The two women rush outside to enjoy the lively festival. Dracula secretly shadows the women through a lively night festival. They enjoy sweet treats and observe a fake swimming mermaid. Later, the two friends enter a dark haunted house attraction. Maria gets separated from Mina in the confusing dark corridors. A mechanical skeleton drops down and startles Mina very badly. She screams loudly and stumbles away in absolute pure panic. Dracula steps from the shadows to gently guide her outside. Next, the small group visits a loud, crowded shooting gallery. Dracula wraps his arms around Mina to steady her rifle. In his close embrace, Mina experiences another strange past vision. Soon, Dracula takes the tired women to a grand hotel room. They wait there to rest before the big fireworks show. Dracula presents a golden music box to a seated Mina. She carefully opens the small lid to hear a soft melody. Intense flashes of a past life suddenly flood Mina's mind. She gasps in shock and quickly pulls her body away. Filled with genuine genuine fear, she accuses him of casting spells. Dracula tries to explain the tragic story of his lost love. He deeply hopes Mina is his long-lost reincarnated bride. Mina forcefully shakes her head and insists she is only Mina. He gently presses the golden box into her bare hands. Suddenly, Maria bursts loudly into the extremely quiet hotel room. She excitedly drags Mina to the balcony to watch the fireworks. Late at night, Dracula walks Mina home through a foggy street. He gently kisses her hand at the gate before leaving. Mina enters the quiet house with a bright, happy smile. Her joy quickly vanishes when she sees the living room. She finds an injured Jonathan lying on a patterned couch. The serious priest explains that Count Dracula held Jonathan prisoner. Mina firmly refuses to believe the Count is a monster. The old priest reveals that Dracula is a blood-drinking vampire. He mentions a special perfume used to control his victims. He pulls back Mina's lace collar to check her neck. He finds no bite marks and feels a deep relief. Mina hurries to her dark bedroom to cry all alone. She opens the golden music box and hears the melody. Visions of her past life as Elisabetta flood her mind. She finally snaps out of the deep trance moments later. She looks up and sees Dracula standing right beside her. Mina angrily tells Dracula to leave her bedroom immediately. He walks outside and climbs onto the high balcony railing. Not knowing his powers, she begs him not to jump. He steps down and she accuses him of tricking her. Dracula swears he never used his controlling perfume on her. A single drop of blood suddenly falls from Mina's nose. Dracula gently wipes the blood and licks his own fingers. He holds both her hands and speaks about their past. Bright visions of their former life flash in Mina's mind. She remembers his exact romantic words from centuries ago. Mina fully accepts the memories and calls him her life. She then pulls the vampire into a deep, passionate kiss. They soon end up making love together in her bed. Mina passionately begs him to make her immortal too. Dracula leans down and bites her neck to transform her. The priest suddenly sniffs the air inside the living room. He recognizes the hospital perfume and knows Dracula is here. He grabs his gun and hurries into Mina's empty bedroom. The men quickly agree to track the vampire to Romania. Meanwhile, Maria happily greets Henry while wearing a feathered coat. She acts very loving to keep her poor husband distracted. Just as she prepares to bite him, the men arrive. Maria turns around and screams with a fierce, scary face. The priest instantly fires his loud gun into her chest. Maria quickly recovers and forcefully strikes Henry to the floor. She aggressively tackles the priest and chokes his bare neck. Jonathan desperately grabs a long sword from a wall display. He swings the heavy blade hard to decapitate the vampire. Her severed head flies off and forcefully knocks Dumont down. Her shaking body collapses onto the floor a moment later. The priest grabs a metal crucifix and stabs her heart. Later, rugged servants carry a wooden coffin into a castle. Dracula and Mina step out to tour the grand hall. They calmly walk past a row of ugly stone gargoyles. Mina wanders alone and finds Elisabetta's dress on a bed. Dracula opens a golden music box to play its tune. Mina gracefully models the beautiful dress near the stained glass. The priest's team and soldiers wait in the snow. A carriage exits, so they grab the heavy gate. They hold the doors open and slip inside. A soldier shoots the front door open. Other men fire heavy cannons from the forest. The loud blasts hit the castle, and walls crumble. Dracula kisses Mina and tells her to stay inside. He leaves, but Mina looks around in terror. A cannonball violently strikes the ceiling above her. Thick smoke and debris fall into the bedroom. Downstairs, the small gargoyles attack the soldiers. However, the large army easily outnumbers the monsters. The soldiers use their guns to fight back. They keep advancing and take over the hall. One man points toward a dark doorway. He guides Jonathan's group toward the basement. Meanwhile, soldiers explore the upper corridors. Mina sees the armed men coming and panics. She shuts the heavy wooden door and locks it. Dracula grabs a sword and charges at the other soldiers. He moves fast through the smoke and slashes them down. More soldiers rush down the stairs to join the fight. Dracula easily deflects their bayonets and quickly kills them too. Henry uses the chaotic distraction to draw two large pistols. He shoots Dracula in the chest with both guns simultaneously. The thick smoke clears, but the vampire stands completely unhurt. Dracula lunges forward and viciously bites deep into Henry's neck. Dracula turns and points his bloody sword at the priest's throat. The brave priest stays calm and explains God's true will. He says the Creator does not want his creation destroyed. The priest claims that men only kill for selfish reasons. He states that God actually sent him to save Dracula. With a bloody mouth, Dracula calls Mina his only salvation. The priest sharply warns that Dracula will be her damnation. Suddenly, Mina's terrified screams echo loudly from the upper floors. Dracula lowers his weapon to go help his trapped wife. He asks asks the hiding gargoyles to buy him some time. The gargoyles fiercely battle the soldiers inside the main hall. Meanwhile, Dracula fights his way through a dark stone corridor. He slaughters every armed soldier blocking his path. Blood covers his face as he bursts into a ruined bedroom. He finds Mina on the bed and hugs her tightly. The old priest enters the room with a shiny metal stake. He tells Dracula to sacrifice himself for Mina's soul. Dracula listens closely and kisses Mina one last time. He steps back out and shuts the heavy wooden door. He firmly slides the metal lock into place. Mina screams and bangs on the door from inside. Dracula leans his back against the door in the hallway. He spreads his arms wide to accept his fate. The priest recites a Latin prayer and strikes him. He slams the metal stake deep into Dracula's chest. Dracula gasps and slowly slides down the door. Mina frantically forces the door open from the inside. She drags his dying body back inside the room. They share one final kiss before his skin turns gray. Dracula suddenly crumbles into a pile of dark ashes. Outside, the fierce gargoyles transform back into human children. Jonathan steps into the bedroom and sees Mina sobbing. She cries over the crumbling pile of dust. The fine ashes begin to float up into the air. Jonathan realizes she truly loved Dracula all along. He turns around and walks away in complete silence. Outside, the dark ashes drift toward the stormy sky. Thanks for watching.